what does it mean to be not conformed? Thank you for joining us here on another episode of Get Ready News. I'm Mark Lindstead. This is my brother David Lindstead. And we're here to look at things through the lens of the Bible, whether it be news or trends or things that are going on throughout the world, and just kind of give everybody a little upbeat learning something for the week, I guess.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The Bible is always that one true book that you can come back to.
Yeah.
And it never changes. And even though it was written in parts 2,000 years ago, even longer, it still applies today.
Yeah.
And I would say that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Everything is the same as it's always been.
And really, you start looking at some of the things that are going around now that someone would say is a trend, and you think, or maybe look 50 years ago, you're like, how would that be have ever been a trend? Well, look 1,000 years ago, how would that have ever been a trend? And we're doing things now that 50 years from now, people will be like, why would anyone ever do this trend? This is stupid.
Yeah, I've tried to watch some of the Tic Tacs and stuff like that, and all this dancing garbage and all this. It's just ridiculousness. I can't even stand to watch it.
Well, the interesting thing to me is when I do open an app that has video content of some kind, I'm looking for someone to be unique and show me something. But really, it seems like a lot of these are all about doing the exact same thing as somebody else and just being a copycat.
Yeah, I think that's about the extent of man.
Yeah.
Everything that we know has already been done, and we're just repeating things, and the next generation comes along and tells how great they are and how we never knew how. We never did socialism right. We never did this right. And as soon as we do it right, you'll see how well it works.
That's my favorite comment about socialism. It just hasn't been done right yet. In fact, I just watched a video just before we came in here about a kid who was discussing capitalism versus socialism with an older man, and the man says, "I don't really like socialism. I like capitalism." And the young man said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, take France. They're really a socialist atmosphere as far as how they operate." And the kid says, "No, they're not." And he says, "Well, okay, who do you think's socialist?" "Well, China." He says, No, China is communism." He says, "No, it may be run by the Chinese Communist Party, but it's not communism." It just, what?
Yeah, it's just you know, it's interesting. I have been talking to another guy that's been talking about the Holocaust and how it's been blown way out of proportion. It was not. How could he have ever killed millions of people? And you know, I find it interesting. I think it was Eisenhower that said something to the we need to make sure we get pictures and we write this stuff down because there's going to come a day that people are going to deny it, and we see that happening in every level of everything. You know, people denied this happened. Even, you know, I saw one that said, you know, well, I believe in God or believe in Jesus if I see him raised from the dead. Well, he did raise from the dead.
Yeah.
And we have people's letters talking about what happened when he raised from the dead and all the people that see him. And we don't have a single book out there saying Jesus didn't raise from the dead from that time.
Yeah.
Well, nothing, you know, and it's just it's amazing to me how a man can just make up his mind and just tread along this way and say, you know, I'm right.
Well, there comes a time when I think, as we read through Romans 1, that as man becomes willfully ignorant, that God finally says, fine.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, have it.
Yeah, and I think that's what he means is it's once you've made that determination in your heart that you're going to do whatever it is you're going to do, God just lets you do it, and there is ramifications to doing sin.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what we're talking about this time around, I made a comment. I probably should never have made a comment because all it does is like kicking a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
But I do happen to like a few of this man's songs. You know, I don't know the state of his soul. I don't know his ministry. I don't watch any of his sermons if he has any. But I have listened to a few of his songs. His name is Brandon Lake. And he did a trend that's been going around TikTok. And it's to this song, and I don't even know the name of the song, but the catchphrase of the song is, "I woke up in a new Bugatti."
Right.
And the trend is that you're supposed to have somebody in your family drag you off the screen like you took off in a fast car. And the silly trend is that the dads are too heavy to be drugged, so they're
Right.
slow, the car's not very fast, and it's humorous. And I don't know, for a guy who's singing what I would be considered, a praise leader, or maybe even some people go as far to call him a worship leader, and I don't think either of those roles exist anywhere in the Bible.
No.
But as somebody who is looked up to by our youth for music that they enjoy that helps them draw closer to God, I said, well, what's this song really about? So I looked at the lyrics. You can't get 2 words, 3 words into the song before it's foul.
Yeah. We can't even put them on the screen.
No, there's no way.
It's absolute terrible.
I'm ashamed that I even had to see him to begin with.
Oh.
It's disgusting. And the things the song talks about, the drugs and promiscuity and womanization, and it's everything that the Christian should be against, every single thing.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that people would latch onto this. It looks like a fun little whatever, and all these people are doing this. In fact, I've seen, after talking to you, I've seen this happen even with some other religious types of people, and they have priests and pastors being pulled off, and it's like, I don't know that this is really where you want to be.
Yeah.
It looks like a fun little trend on the internet, but, are you actually encouraging people to check this song out? And are you telling them that it's okay to listen to whatever you want?
You would never hear this song on my TikTok or on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I would never play a single lyric or note of this song. That's how filthy it is. And so I did write a comment. I said, so a praise song leader doing a trend to an evil song about drugs, sexual promiscuity, got it. Then I said, great role model. And I was trying to spark people to think, is this how we as believers should be acting?
Yeah, I think that especially those that would be, what I would say, in the limelight.
Yeah.
Even if you would just say, my pastor or elder or father, or, you have a little bit of responsibility to what you bring to the group. I've seen so many productions in churches where they do like thriller and they do zombies and they do all of these big productions, and I wonder, what does that really say about that person's ministry, and what is that person really doing to his flock? Yeah. And where are we going with all this? And
this guy has 3 million followers on his Instagram page. So 3 million people, if they watched his video, heard that this song was something that he used in a trend.
Right.
So if 10% of those people go on to say, what's that song really about, and listen to it, now their mind and their eyes are full of filth.
And this has come up kind of in our church before. We sing songs that are from various groups, like Hillsong and stuff like that. But you know what? Not every Hillsong song is really a good song.
No, not at all.
There's a few that are fantastic. And even some of the old hymns have problems in them. But, this is taking a next step. This is taking and just absolute filth.
Yeah. Well, I put this up there. There were several responses, as you can imagine. And the first one that comes up was this one fella who says, I know Brandon. He is a great role model, husband and father, and more. His family was having fun. No need for this negativity, bro. None of those lyrics were present. So then I look at this. So if I was promoting a song about stealing something, but nothing I had stolen was present in the video, then it's okay to be a song about stealing stuff.
It kind of sounds like that's what he's saying. It doesn't. It's kind of like the ends justifies the means. As long as everything was done in good nature, and it was a prank. What do we see now? The kids going and doing things foul to people in the store. Oh, it's just a prank. It's just a prank.
One kid's getting about 10 years in jail for
Yep.
this, I think, coming up here soon.
Yep.
Here's another one that says, bro, it's a trend, pipe down.
Yeah.
So someone coming up to you and saying, hey, in brotherly love, in Christian faith, I'm asking you, is this the appropriate thing to be doing?
Yeah.
And then for believers, pipe down.
Yeah.
Where are we at with this?
That's a good question, and I think this is something that weakens the church.
Yeah.
When you allow things to be done and you don't talk about them.
Sure.
You don't bring stuff up. I've always encouraged people to come and talk to me.
Yeah.
If you have an issue or you think there's something I'm doing right, you need to let me know, because I really want to know.
Yeah, I need to know.
If sometimes you have a little smudge on your face or whatever, and I would for sure my wife to say, honey, you got mustard on your face or something.
I think about the interaction Charlie Kirk had with a homosexual man in one of his debates or school outings or whatever it was, and the homosexual man said, God is love, right? God is love. And Charlie Kirk said, well, amongst other things, he's perfect love, and he's perfect justice, and he's perfect this.
Yep.
He says, well, in love, you should love everybody. And Charlie says, yeah, we do love everybody. And he says, well, then why do you say hateful things to them, like you're homophobic or your homosexuality is a sin? Because it is. And in love, I tell you that.
Yeah.
And he goes, what do you mean? He says, okay, let me ask you this. Charlie asked him, if your sister was wearing something that would get her made fun of as you were leaving the house, would you tell her? He says, no, if she wants to wear that, that's what she wants to wear. He says, that's the difference between you and me. In love, I would go to my sister and say, sis, you got anything else? Because you're going to have a hard time with that out there.
They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
The other saying is I would rather make them mad and get them to heaven than love them to hell. You've got to bring people the word. You have to tell them, there is consequences for things that you do.
Yeah. Well, I see like this comment here. It's, bro, it's a trend, pipe down. So my response was, called to be set apart, not conformed. How is this hard for Christians to understand?
Yeah.
And the reply here is amazing to me. Understood, but it's a social media trend, such as this is so petty to be complaining about.
It just amazes me that someone could be that open to those things. Now, I'm going to say, let's pretend like Mr. Lake didn't know the whole song, and all he'd ever seen was just people being dragged off to the side. You would still hope he would kind of figure out that song and decide, is this really something I need to do? And
in leadership, before I do anything, I have to research it.
Yeah.
I cannot blindly say this is okay until I've said, okay, what is this about? What is the trend really doing?
My big fear would be to, everybody brags about how many, I think at one time he says, well, how many people have you led to Christ? And I said, well, I would hate to be, and I will sit here today and tell you I probably have helped people into hell by my actions and how I live. And what does this do for an unbeliever that may see this and say, well, this man has no convictions. He does whatever he wants.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of where our conversation went. And I tried to be very steady in my point of we're just not to be conformed to the world.
Yeah.
And it being a social media trend is the key evidence that it is of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we should be different. And so this guy finally came back. He was very hateful. In fact, I wished I had got a screenshot, because at one point when his argument failed, he called me a child person with bad intentions and a few other names. Then he deleted it because I think he might have realized, which I understand, you get mad, you say things in error, but he never once apologized for it.
Yeah.
Never once. But his comment ended up being, if I were you, I'd be embarrassed by your way of making people feel like Jesus saved me from your followers, which I don't understand that sentence at all.
I think what he's trying to say there is that people look at us and see this infighting.
Yeah.
And this has been a constant thing that people have picked apart Christians. But it comes to the fact that just because you say you love Jesus and that you say you're a Christian doesn't make you a Christian. And there has to be a separation. You know, one of the beautiful things I saw, and I may have even been Charlie Kirk that said this too, was the Bible actually divides.
Yes.
The Bible, Jesus says, it will divide families. It will make mothers against fathers, sons against mother. You know, it will divide people because it draws a line.
Well, I've heard someone talk about the border situation in Jesus, and someone says, how's that border in heaven?
Oh, yeah.
Narrow is the way, and few are the ones who get through.
Absolutely. Yep.
So Jesus' border agents might be better than ours. But he goes on to say, you want to discuss how many people Brandon has attracted.
Yep.
First of all, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Attracted to the kingdom of God versus you. He can be credited with filling stadiums, and I'd be taking an educated guess, but I bet you'd have seats and pews empty in a small church. I'd imagine that carries substantial amount of weight. Okay.
So now is he saying because he has such a bigger audience that he's blessed more than someone that might not have as big an audience? Is he drawing his success to that, you think?
I think he's saying that you get a break because you have a bigger audience.
Huh.
He's got a big audience. He brings so many people to stadiums for the kingdom.
Right. What kingdom?
His kingdom or God's kingdom? Yeah. Is he reaping his rewards now?
Yeah.
Or is he getting his rewards in heaven?
And that's a good question. I mean, that's a fantastic question. And it leads us back to what they always talk about, which is judge not.
Yeah.
You know, but what do we see with the Pharisees? Weren't they doing the same thing? You think of the publican and the Pharisee praying.
Yeah.
And what do you have? You have the Pharisee standing up and saying, thank God I'm not like this guy.
Well, I look at this and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and as I try to read this and understand where the mindset is he saying that association with evil is okay if you have a big enough audience? If you want enough souls to Christ, then you're allotted so much sin?
That's a good question, because you could take that so many different ways. You're really not sure what angle he's coming at.
And he said you're spending so much time complaining on this thread about this topic isn't productive and ultimately a waste of your time from what that I can guarantee. First of all, he's on this thing with me. So he's wasting his time as well. I don't understand the difference there. But my response was, what kingdom? His kingdom or God's kingdom? Yeah. Because I really want to know, what kingdom is he really doing this for? You know, only God really knows the heart.
Sure.
Through all this.
You know, it says, talking about that Pharisee and publican praying. Yeah. It says the Pharisee reaps his reward because people watch him pray. And they think, oh, he's such a holy person, and that's his reward. Or remember when the widow puts her mites in the offering? They had these big trumpets, and they would take and toss their mites in as they went by, and the rich people would take and throw their change hard so people could hear it. And that was their reward, as people thought, oh, how great these people are for giving. And that I see the parallel here.
Well, I think that the interesting part for me on this whole deal was the idea that believers would try to justify actions rather than saying, you know what, biblically we are called to be different than the world. And maybe this wasn't a great time, and this is a place for correction then. If Brandon Lake is a believer, and he's truly repentant of his sins, and he's following Jesus Christ as his Savior, then this is the time for him to go, oh man, guys, I made a mistake. I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard when it comes to the music and these trends. When it comes, and I'm not saying this about this trend itself, but there have been trends out there that when you go back to where they actually began, was a very disgusting thing that happened.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so, as a leader, as someone that youth and believers look up to for musical content, he needs to hold himself to a standard.
Yeah.
As that leader. In fact, I think the Bible tells us that pastors are held to a higher standard
Yep.
than those who are not. So it's one of those things that I just want people to get better at understanding and not falling for the pitfalls of the world.
Absolutely. You know, it says in 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 21, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good.
Yeah.
And then it also says, abstain from the appearance of evil. And I think that that's a real call for us today.
Yeah.
To abstain from these things, because your living testimony is sometimes the only thing people will ever see.
Yeah.
You know, you pass somebody in the store, you make a post online, and they don't have the opportunity for you to sit down and open the Bible to them, you know. But they can look at you and say, there's something different about this person, and maybe you see a little bit more about you, and maybe that would direct them to God, to Jesus.
Well, I go back to Romans 12 and verse 1 and 2, and it says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is our reasonable service.
Yeah.
And it says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the will of God is for you not to have any fun in your life.
Right.
And by all means, enjoy things. We're built to enjoy things. But enjoy good things,
Yes.
not worldly things. And I think that being not conformed to the world, I hold that in my mind. I think social media is the epitome of the world. And that's where we ought to not blend the most.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's easy to be anonymous, if you will, on social media. But at the same time, people still know who you are. I mean, you're going to be anonymous to the world, but people that know you already know you.
Yeah.
And it's easy to take a step too far as an anonymous person. And then what are you doing to people that do know you?
Yeah.
You know, it's a tough world to be in.
So I keep thinking about the judge not lest ye be judged. That was one of the things that kind of kept popping up in these comments. But I think if we look at that verse, I think there's a second half to that verse that nobody wants to talk about.
Exactly. It says, for with the judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure of might or smallness it shall be measured unto you. And why beholdest thou the mote in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam in your own eye?
Yeah.
So basically what he's saying is, you don't judge people when you're guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
Especially these Pharisees had such a huge beam in their eye, they couldn't see to get the speck out of the little person's eye. And it says, let me pull the mote out of thine eye, and behold, the beam is in thy own eye. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye.
Yeah.
And then thou can see clearly to cast out the mote out of the brother's eye. So it's saying that we should judge.
We should judge.
We should judge, but if we're guilty of that, we need to clean our own life up first before we can help the next person with the same issue.
Yeah. So it really doesn't say don't judge.
Yeah.
Very clearly the Bible says judge.
What is that saying that we've been saying lately? I can do all things.
I can do all things through a verse taken out of context.
So we just read that first verse, and that's what everybody holds on to is judge not, but they don't read the rest to see that God does, in fact.
Yeah. Well, God is 100% perfect judgment.
Yes.
And it's coming.
Yes.
And our job in love is to warn people that judgment is coming.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. You've got to tell people there's a problem.
And is it love to tell somebody that's going to hell that there's a way out? and that the only way out is to be admitting of your sin, to realize you are a sinner and need a Savior? Or is it love to just say, they're really enjoying themselves. I think I'm just let them do what they want to do, and I'm not going to tell them anything about Jesus.
Yeah, I think that you're doing people a severe disservice by not telling them that they're going to hell.
Yeah.
The loving thing to do is to tell people that there is a line, that things are wrong. Now, just because someone is going against what God says doesn't mean I hate them.
Yeah.
But out of love for humanity, it's for me to say, hey, that's not quite right. And, you probably ought to open the Bible, read it, and discover God and Jesus. And you will find out that God doesn't make you clean up your life to come to Him. You come to Him as you are.
Yeah.
And He will help you clean up your life after.
So, I hope today's discussion kind of shed some light on what we think and what I believe the Bible mentions when it comes to being not conformed. And I really want each of us and our viewers as well to look at what does it really mean to be a believer, and how do I reflect that faith to the world?
Yeah.
How do I interact in this world in a point that would actually lead people to Jesus? And when I talk about things like these trends, when we discuss these things, is this leading people to Christ, or is this leading people to think that they're okay where they're at?
Right. And I think that's a real danger in this world. It's too easy. Let's say this, Mr. Blake is a Christian. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that all those people, those 3 million people, are not Christians that follow him. Yeah. And I would say probably you'd be surprised 1/2 to 3/4 of the people in his audience probably are not Christians. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how many people listened to Creed that weren't Christians, and took forever for them to find out it was a Christian, supposed to be a Christian band. But you still have to present yourself as a Christian and uphold those things. If this is your ministry. Yeah.
Your life should ever be pointing to Christ, not away from it. It should ever be pointing to the world. It should be pointing to God.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we are. And truly, when we talk about iron sharpening iron, this is where someone comes to Brandon and says, listen, man, I don't know if you understand. This song is horrible. Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm praying that there's somebody in his realm, in his background, that says, hey, let's look at these trends a lot closer before we do any more of this stuff. Yeah. Maybe he needs a social media manager or something. I'm sure he has one.
And in my mind, if he came out and said to his audience, hey, we made this. Yeah. And I didn't realize. Yeah. And I don't think it was an appropriate thing to make. I think that's
perfect.
Absolutely
exactly fantastic. what God wants you to do is say, whoa, I made a mistake, guys. Yeah. Don't want to do that no more. That perfect. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Yeah. Trust me, I fail every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's not a standard I want to hold him to that I can't hold myself to either.
Right.
Well, thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.